Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Ironbark podcast, and I am your host, Epion. Today, I want to talk to you about something you've probably fantasized about yourself one time or another. Winning the lottery, winning a big lottery jackpot, a number like 70 or 50 million. What would you do with it? I know what I would do with it. And today I'm going to share with you a couple of ideas I have in mind. My first idea, my ultimate dream would be to buy a large property. This incredibly large acreage of land, trees, vast land. You get it. Build my nice little dream house. Nothing too lavish, nothing too extreme, just something simple but very enjoyable where I would never really need to leave the house and it would be quite entertaining just to be there in and of itself. So like maybe like a small little theater room or entertainment room, hot tub, pool, a few bedrooms if I have a family and kids and stuff like that. Um, where else can I go with this? Like you understand what I'm getting. Like a nice little place, like a nice kitchen, it's got a nice island, all the works kind of. The works kind of. Not too extreme, not too lavish. Like I ain't going to put no waterfalls in my house. Nothing like that, but like very very simple, very nice things. I Then after that, just further down on the property, it would almost look like it's a separate property altogether. I would have what I would call the Ironbark Wildlife Sanctuary and Educational Center. And the purpose of this would be to sort of like house and home temporarily injured wildlife. You have a deer with a broken leg, an elk with a broken leg. Instead of euthanizing them, we pick them up, we take them, we put a little Casty McGee on it, you know, get them back up in this pen or whatever, this little enclosure, isolated from other animals and humans. We'd feed them elusively, sort of. We'd find ways so they don't get dependent on humans. Keep the fear of like humans in them. Like obviously don't torment them or anything like that, but we don't feed them and have them rely on us where they get accustomed to us so that they can effectively be rewild. That would be the goal. That would be like the main purpose of it. Now, I would want to have it like, kind of like spread out into like sort of like a conglomerate. So, how could I make money off of this organization to keep it self-sustaining? Not to become rich, but to keep it self-sustaining and that it could become this really beautiful thing. So, one thing I thought of is, okay, well, it needs to be an educational center as well. So, part of it would have to be like a museum. I'd like to have somehow source fossils from the Pleistocene era. So, like woolly mammoths, cave bears, dire wolves, steep bison, have those on display, have some like faux taxidermy, and then really captivate the imaginations of, field trips when the kids come through from schools, have them come through, they learn a lot about it. They kind of get like a better sense of what wildlife is, what it used to be. And it's like very educational. They just learn from it. And then there's a little bit of a source of income there. Besides that, I think at some point the sanctuary or rehabilitation, there would be some animals that would be unable to be rewild. So there would be animals that are like problematic bears where they become too reliant on humans, where they only eat garbage and they're like going around neighborhoods and they're stalking through people's garbages, and no matter how many times they relocate this bear, it always seems to wind back up in a urban area. So instead of having them destroy it, it'd be like, oh no, we'll take on the bear. We have an enclosure for it, etc., etc. And in essence, that bear would then become sort of like a zoo animal. Now I know zoos are like they're kind of controversial. Like you go to them, you don't feel good about some of the animals. They look kind of sad, but you look at some of the other animals, they look quite happy. So I think there's a little bit of a trade-off here. It's like this bear's problematic. It's going to be euthanized or it's going to endanger people at some point. Where's a happy medium? It's sort of like this, but I would want to do it so that it was better than a zoo. Like it wouldn't just comply with the bare minimums of like regulations on how much space an animal needs. I'd want to give like ample space to the point where it wouldn't really be like a zoo. Like you'd probably need like binoculars or something to actually view the animal. But nonetheless, I think that would still be I don't know, like a good go between, and then people will kind of come there and they'll be like, okay, we get to see some of the animals because obviously the kids and stuff wouldn't be able to see the animals that are going to be rehabbed into the wild because they need to have the least amount of exposure to people as possible, not to become sort of like uh, a good fear of people is good because there's people out there that hunt them and you don't want them to be too easy to hunt, right? So that's kind of why you don't want to condition them to want to be near people. A couple other things that I would do that I would think would be quite interesting is that feral cats, the cats that get wrangled up and they take them to like the shelters and stuff and they want to find them a home. But these cats are they're kind of wild, like they're a house cat, but they're not friendly. They bite, they scratch, they hiss. They don't want to be touched. They're not housebroken at all. They'll pee and poop wherever. They'll tear apart furniture. So they're incredibly difficult to rehome. What I would do is I would have like a big sanctuary type area. I would have like an indoor and outdoor space for them. And it would be like a feral cat sanctuary. And obviously they would all be spayed and neutered to prevent them from reproducing. But it would be a nice little place for them to live out the rest of their life where they're not wreaking havoc upon native bird populations and rabbit populations and other small rodents, especially songbirds. They do a devastating amount of damage to songbirds every year. So I think it's kind of important to take, people's cats out of the wildlife ecosystem. They're sort of an invasive species that are destructive, but also I don't think they deserve to die. So it would be nice to have sort of like an area where you could have, and then you could have a section for like the friendlier cats, and people could kind of, the ones that won't really attack. They're not. You don't really have to worry about too much about them, and you could just kind of show people like, okay, you could have volunteers come on and be like, hey, do you want to like, kind of like get like cozy up to these cats type of. And maybe there would be a way to like rehabilitate them so that they could eventually find a home. So that's another thing. Or it could be a place where farmers could come. Let's say they need like a good mouser or something, and it's like we can be the place that holds them and offload them to farmers when appropriate if they desire a cat like that for the barn. Another thing I'd want to do is a wolf dog sanctuary. A lot of people get wolf dog hybrids where they're like half dog, half wolf. The issue with that is that these dogs become very bonded to their like owner. They see them as like a pack member, but sometimes they try to overtake the pack member. Sometimes they're more wolf than dog and they're not very housebroken, or the owner loses the means, like just through economic circumstances, to really care for and provide for the animal. They no longer have like a large home with a large property. They don't have like a fenced in lot, and it's just problematic and they don't know what to do with it. They go through a divorce, what have you. So there are a lot of places that become like these wolf dog sanctuaries. I would like to have a section of the property dedicated to that as well. And same thing with kind of like the feral cat population. I think that would be like I think it'd be very neat. And I feel like that would be like a population of animals that could also sort of work in like a zoo fashion. Obviously they would need a lot of land and a decent sized enclosure, indoor, outdoor, because the winters do get cold, but they do need to go out there and, be animals. So there would be that. I think I'd want to also have a business associated with it where it'd be problematic wildlife relocation, or not maybe, or pests, more like pest related. So it's like, we'll come and we'll get rid of the skunks living under your porch. We'll get rid of the raccoons in your attic, but we'll do it humanely. We won't execute them or terminate them. We'll do it as humanely as possible. We'll get them out there. We'll rehome them, rewild them, and in cases where we can't, I guess they kind of become part of the sanctuary in a way. I think that'd be like a really cool thing to do. I think there's just like a lot of stuff, a lot of multifaceted approaches to this, but obviously it becomes very expensive because to treat these animals, you obviously need like a vet. So you need to pay a vet. Ideally, I'd like to have a medical site a part of it, just so a vet could just come in and have all these tools and stuff readily available to them. So that would include things like an X-ray machine, which could be quite expensive. Then obviously like the medications and the supplies and stuff like that. That would probably be the biggest part of it, would just be the medical, but that would be like the main purpose of it. So that's where I think it would have to also become sort of like a charity in a way. So it'd be a non-profit charity. people who donate to it helps with the rehabilitation, relocation of the animals, um, and also pays for the vet bills and stuff like that. And the reality is, no vets work for free, and they can't. They need to make a living for themselves. They have extremely large, you know, student debts they need to pay off, and they're not going to pay themselves off by working for free. There might be a few vets that might do the odd thing, like maybe like at cost or whatever. They feel like they'll do some. I've seen some vets, they do a lot of things like here and there out of the goodness of their heart when they don't necessarily need to, or they kind of waive a lot of the costs associated with it, or they try to or attempt to. So don't harp on vets too much. It takes a lot of education to kind of do what they do. I think that's about the extent of it. So I guess I would also put a gift shop in there as another revenue stream to help pay for, the animals and stuff like that. I feel like I had another thing I wanted to cover with that, but I think that's basically it. Yeah, I think, and once it becomes, if you made it a museum, like you were able to kind of like borrow the fossils and stuff of like the Pleistocene era animals, I think you could qualify with the government as a museum, and then I think you get like additional government funding that way. So there'd be multiple ways of like drawing sort of like not revenue, but monetary supports from the government to help support it, as well as having to kind of like do it ourselves. I think there would also be an additional way to like help support it would be, you ever do like a kids party or like, I don't know, some sort of event, and you show up there and this person's got like a really long python and he's like showing it off to the kids, or they bring out like an eagle and it's on somebody's arm and they're showing it off to the crowd and this and that, da 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 da. I don't know, they charge like maybe like 100 to like $600 just to show up and kind of like show off these kind of exotic animals. I think that could also potentially be like a revenue stream to help keep the thing afloat on its own. Yeah, I think overall that'd be probably the best bet. That's what I would want to do. Yeah, just have my nice little sanctuary. And then obviously I'd have like a barn and stuff. I'd probably have a few farm animals because I've always wanted horses. I've always wanted goats, mostly just as pack goats to go hiking with. Though there is complications with that, but there's ways to avoid those complications. Um, they actually do, some of them, like domestic goats will carry a certain disease that's easily treatable and almost unnoticeable in them, but if the wild goats do not cope with it very well, so you have to be cautious and have them tested before you take them out so that they don't give that to other wild goats and indirectly, like through their, like, I don't know, their poop or like their spit when they're eating somewhere or whatever. Or maybe even just contact. They just like get close to them and they somehow like draw their attention, like, oh, I'm curious, you're a goat, I'm a goat. Yeah, and it'd be nice to have horses for the same reason, just to go hiking with them or go on trails with them. But yeah, that's my $70 million dream if I won the lottery, and that's what the Lotto Max is currently at where I live. 70 million. It'd be quite nice to win that. I'm sure everyone else thinks the same. So if you see the Ironbark Wildlife Sanctuary and Educational Center, you may suspect something. But yeah, in wildlife news, there's not a whole lot going on, not a whole lot I could find. I saw that some fish in Florida, like those what are they, like the saw-beaked hammerheads, or those ray sharks type of things. Those, I forget what they're called, like kites or something. There've been found a lot of fish like that swimming in circles and spiraling and then dying, and they don't know why. They can't really figure out why they're acting like that or why that's happening. It immediately made me think of whirling disease in fish, where the parasite gets into them, screws with their spine a little bit, and then they can't swim straight, so they end up like spinning in circles and then eventually croak from that. I reckon that's probably not the issue, because the biologist probably, or more than likely, would have concluded that was the issue by now, since they're pretty smart individuals. They think it's them interacting. It's like a neurological issue where it's like an agent or a chemical of some sort interacting or interfering with their brain chemistry, and it's causing them to do that and then die. And they don't know what the cause of it might be. Maybe somebody dumped some stuff they shouldn't have in the ocean somewhere around there. Who knows? yeah, I don't know. I think that's all I got for you folks. I can talk about my. Oh, I just want to apologize for being late on the podcast. I usually try to get it out once a week, and I'm a day late. A little bit of a busy weekend. Was out in the mountains, sat by the river, and just sort of chilled and thought about my thoughts and like what I want to do. I was kind of like, dreaming of that like wildlife sanctuary idea. I was dreaming about um, the future of this podcast, the future of my content creation, other things I can do. Some things, are hit and miss. The videos I kind of slowed down on a bit because I just wasn't happy with them. Some I was trying some like zany ideas, got some bad feedback on them. They were just sort of like, don't do that. But I also feel like, I don't know. I kind of like to just be like weirdly creative sometimes and free of other people's judgments and sort of like scrutinies. And as long as it's harmless, I think it's fine. I kind of like to embrace my inner child sometimes, but it's just, I don't know. It's also kind of cringe and weird, right? So I don't know. I'm kind of caught between two wolves fighting in me. Is like, don't care about what anybody else thinks or says and just be based, like completely based, like unapologetically yourself, no matter how embarrassing, cringe, or like humiliating you are to like how other people would never do that. But I think like there's something to be said about embracing about what makes you different. I feel like that's something like be true to yourself. Like why would you want to spend your whole life sheltering who you really are from the outside world because people will think you're strange or weirdo and like I don't maybe eccentric, like I don't know like how to explain, like you're harmless, like it's not like you're causing harm to anyone. You're just kind of like, oh, that guy's a I would just describe it as being dorky, like that guy's a dork, like he like being like publicly, like I don't know what's something that's sort of like normal but some people would frown upon, like someone that likes like anime or watches cartoons as an adult or likes like Pokemon cards or something as an adult. Like these things are kind of like it doesn't fucking matter, but it's like it's weird. You shouldn't do that. You're a grown man. Like figure your shit out. But you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like in that vein, and it's sort of like, are you just gonna be like this like hardened grouch who no fun is allowed, and you only have to like the things everybody else likes, or are you just gonna be kind of like free flowing, not really caring what other people think, just being honest with yourself, attracting people who are like minded, similar to you, non-judgmental, and they're just sort of embrace happiness and fun. And I don't know. It's hard to say really what are we supposed to be? What are we supposed to do? Well, I don't know. I don't got the answers. One thing I was thinking about by the river was putting together a bunch of my wildlife videos and just building that, hour long documentary. Just doing it. Even if it's poor quality, just do it. Just get it out. Um there's a few more animals I want to track down and get footage of before I do that because I want it to be kind of comprehensive. A little bit, and then there's a couple of stuff I shot earlier in my videography hobby that isn't very good quality. So I want to get better footage of pronghorns. I want to one day get those mountain goats and caribou that escape me, but other people find them quite regularly. So I think these are some plans I have for the summers. Like I gotta get at least those three back down. Um, and then the pie in the skies is the mountain lion and the wolverine. That would be a dream come true. But yeah, that's the plan. I think that was like a thought that came to me from the muse. If you listen to this podcast, you hear me talk about the muse, where thoughts sort of just come from nowhere and they just sort of go into your head, and it's just like you should do this. It's a good idea to do this. So I think one good idea from that is put together the hour-long documentary. Just talk over, say all the things you love about these animals, like these little unique features. And here's the thing, I don't think I have any wolf footage either, so I need a wolf as well. I need to go to the Yellowstone. I need to get down to Yellowstone, find some wolves and stuff like that. But put that documentary together because there's a lot I want to say about wolves. There's a lot I want to say about mountain lions. A little bit to say about wolverines. A lot to say about pronghorns. Not too much to say about caribou. A little bit. Mountain goats, I don't really think I have anything to say. Maybe a little blurb. But yeah. Coyotes. got a little bit to say about. Shout out to Coyote America. It's a pretty good book. I think that's Dan Flores. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That is where yeah, that's what came to me in the muse sitting by the river. Also, the idea of writing a book comes to me frequently, but a book is very time consuming. So it's a lot of work. I was writing a book and then I started to cheat a bit to help use like AI to fluff it up. It just seemed so soulless. It didn't seem authentic. It didn't seem real. So I ultimately stopped that. And when I say I was using it a bit, like I basically tested it for like a sample paragraph of what it could look like. And I was just like, no, this isn't going to work. I can't cheat my way through this. It has to be authentic to me. It has to be like my words, my thoughts, my sort of unique observations that an AI won't even know about. Like it won't know like like it may know certain obscure facts, but it's not going to have them kind of surface to the top of their like what they write out for you. It's going to be buried deep beneath, and they're going to probably never come up in relevancy. So I don't know. Maybe one day AI will be strong enough and powerful enough to write something compelling with something you could say has like a writer's soul in it. But that's yet to be seen. So from now for this point on, from you know what I mean. Things are gonna have to be real, and people are gonna be able to tell if it's not. I was thinking about buying a laptop or like a notebook to take with me out to the mountains, and just sort of be able to type, because I don't know. I don't really like the idea of a phone when I'm typing and stuff. It's just too cramped. It's not enough bandwidth with two thumbs. I need like all 10 digits to kind of get going, to really get my thoughts onto like a document. And then I thought about handwriting, but I just find it so much. I guess it's not. There is apps now where you can take your handwriting and transfer it to digital. So maybe that would be better. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, folks, I think that's it. I can't really think of anything else. The eclipse came and went. That was kind of interesting, right? Like, I like the whole like astrophotography stuff, but I'm not well equipped enough to deal with it. And I'm on the West Coast, not the Midwest / Central, wherever you want to call it. So I wasn't going to get good footage of it anyway, although I could have got a partial or something like that, but I was busy working, so there'll be other eclipses. Maybe I should book those days off in the future. Nothing too crazy happened, I don't think. Came and went. See some good photos out there. A lot of them are sort of like composites or heavy edits that make the sun look closer than what it actually is to the earth, all this kind of stuff. It's kind of like, hey, it's pretty, but it's not real. I don't know what to tell you. You know my gripes with raw versus like photoshopped, although Photoshop does help make a picture look a lot better. And in some circumstances, it kind of just enhances the photo. It doesn't really change what was there. It just sort of makes it, I don't know, hard to explain. You know what I'm talking about, though. Anyway, y'all, thanks for tuning in. This is last week's episode, though it appeared a day after. So you will get another one this Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. You should. But does it mean I'm gonna? To be seen, to be determined. Take care, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have an even better one next weekend. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting all my content I put out there. Goodbye.